All right, welcome back. I'm going to jump right in. This video is going to show some of the additions and changes that have been made to editing and map creation. The video immediately after this one is going to be a mission playthrough. So if you like seeing how the sausage is made, then this is the video for you. If you don't, then check the video that will be put up shortly after this one, as it will be hopefully an exciting mission playthrough. So anyway, there's a new main menu system here. This is a work in progress. We'll get back to this later in a future video. What I'm going to do is go straight into the world editor, and let's create a new map and call this our test. Let's pick a size here. That's fine. And make a mission. I want to show you some of the new tools and rendering capabilities that we now have. So here's our map, perfectly flat, level 1 terrain. If you don't know how to tell what your terrain is, wherever your mouse pointer is, you look in the bottom left corner and it will show you the terrain height. There's also a pair of coordinates down here in the bottom left corner too that show you from 0, 0 all the way to the max width and the height up here. So let's go right into the editor. Now this has changed from earlier videos that I've done many months ago. All our brush options are here at the top, and then we have the ability to paint and manipulate our terrain with this big section here. We can paint creeper and anti-creeper. We have these things called specials and some eco. I'll get to all of these. So first up, let's just do something straightforward, like try to draw some terrain. So let's pick height, and we're on set the terrain, level 5. And so if I just click and drag, I can draw terrain. This is not new or revolutionary. This is the most basic thing you can do with a terrain editor. Could of course change the height and paint different levels here. We can make the brush bigger, like so. Pick different levels here, what have you. You'll notice that the color, the texture is changing based on the level. I'll get to that when I cover the theme. So those are the basics right there. We can do that, or of course a square brush. Nothing really revolutionary there. Now this coverage slider is interesting. It means don't fill in. When I click, it's only going to fill in 40% in this case, or 16%. Now I can repeatedly click and fill it in. So if you set it really low, like so, and then drag, you can make this kind of really dappled terrain. It's got a lot of holes in it and such. You can also hold down Shift, and that delete. Yeah, we'll get back to that. That's for something else. For the terrain, what you might want to do is note this is level 1, this is level 2, so you might go down to level 1 here, and then click, and you can kind of roughen up the edge of some terrain. Okay, so then there are these fill options. Let's put coverage back to 100% here, and flood simply means, we'll make our brush size small. It doesn't need to be too big for this. Flood simply means to take whatever you're doing here, let's say level 11, and flood fill the region surrounded by terrain. So if I click here, it's going to fill in that area here. Now I'll undo that with Control Z. And you can see flood fill does pretty much what you would expect it to do. It fills in flood. Now if I click way out here, it's going to do the whole map, right? Because it wasn't surrounded by anything. If I do click on a terrain level, it'll do just that terrain level. Straightforward, but very useful. Flood to void is similar to flood fill, but it could care less about terrain height. All it cares about is void, or non-terrain. So let's make some. Let's brush size, set it down to 0, which is void. Whoops. Let's put that back, turn off flood fill, and zip around here, and yeah, all right, whatever. There we go. We just made a an island. Now if I select flood to void, it doesn't, and then I decide I want to paint something in here, it's not going to care about all of the various terrain here. It's just going to flood using the void as a barrier. That comes in handy with some of these other options. And it's good for when you're dealing with islands in space or on a world. Let's Control Z that. Level means it doesn't have to be continuous. So let's see, this is level 5. Let's make more level 5 right here. Let's turn off level. Let's paint some more level 5 right here. Now if I did flood fill here, it would only do this. If I did it here, it would only do this. But if I select level and then let's pick something and I click here, it will do all terrain of that level. Different but useful. All is what you'd expect. It's the whole thing, the whole map, all. Level lock is pretty neat. It means, let's make a bigger brush here and pick something we haven't used before. It means that wherever you first click, the center, the vertex that you're over, the piece of terrain that you're over, pick that level and then only apply the changes to that level. So this level 7 that I'm over right here, if I click right here, and now I can drag around, and it's only going to apply to level 7 terrain. So I can do that. If I click right here, this is level 6, it will only do level 6 terrain. Level 5, etc. You can use it to paint between things or over things. To fill in and alter the terrain in interesting ways. So that's what level lock does. So those are our brush options. Now these brushes apply to all of the following things. So not just terrain editing, but creep replacement or these specials or these ecos. But before we go to those, let's continue to explore the height just a little bit. There's some options here. Raise all, literally just raises everything up by 1 or lowers it by 1. The smoothing and smooth all means melt the map. So like turn a heat lamp on the map, and just every time I click it, you can see everything's just melting down, it's dissolving down. You could take a rough or really messed up image with a whole bunch of terrain that's chopped up, and you can melt it down just on a map global basis just with this. Fractal all, the next option here, means just make a quick map. Just make a fractal map, put some mesas on it. I mean, these missions, they're missions. You click a couple times and you're like, yeah, I could play that. And you can. You play some enemies and put some resources. They make fun maps. They can also be inspirational for something to start with. For instance, you might say, okay, that looks funny. We've got this thing down here and then some other stuff. So let's start with that. And then let's use some of our tools. Let's paint void, and then let's do flood, and then let's get our brush small so we can see where we're pointing, and then let's start getting rid of some terrain like that, and maybe that. And I go, okay, all right. So you can see you can start to create. Don't need these guys here. Don't need these little guys. Probably won't need him, but you get the idea. Suddenly it starts looking like a completely different style map because you're gonna have to bridge islands and maybe send delivery pads around and stuff like that. So fractal all can be an interesting place to start. From image, I've showed this in another video, I won't belabor it here, but you can go here, you can load an image, you can filter it, choose your palette, and then generate a map from an image. And that can be a height map or it can be a color image. It'll get treated as a height map with luminosity will be the criteria it uses to determine height. And then you can filter it based on colors and color sets and how many colors you look at. I think I covered that in a video a long time ago, and it's not really changed, but it's all integrated now with the new system. So other than setting and these global options, you can do things. Some of these things you can do on an individual basis. So let's do this. Let's set all terrain to level 1. Click, and we're back to a flat map. Let's take, show you this one first, Mesa. Make the brush size bigger, click, it creates a mesa. Let's raise its maximum height. Let's make the brush size gigantic. You can make various mesas with various numbers of levels and max heights and sizes. Saves you a lot of trouble trying to make those guys by hand. It just sort of pseudo randomly generates various levels and then it rounds off the edges, and they make good landing pads or safe zones in maps. Now back to smoothing, which is similar to smooth all, except it's only going to apply where our brush is. So if I come here and want to smooth that guy out, we can take an edge off. If you want to increase the amount of smoothing that happens, you can raise that up, because we don't always want steep cliffs here. This is good when a lot of times when you import from an image and there was a real noisy area and you need to stretch out some stuff and smooth it down. So that's what the smoothing tool does. So we've covered set, we've covered smooth, and the mesas. Now let's take a look at the Fractal tool. Let's just set this to a seed of 1. And it's like a magic brush, because I've turned it on. I'm going to draw with it. As I draw with it and I paint with it, it paints fractal terrain. Now notice if I come back here and paint again, it doesn't do anything. It's painting the same fractal thing. That's based on this seed. If I change this seed to something different and come here, you'll get a different set of fractal terrain. Put it back to the seed I was using to start with, and put the original terrain back. Now you can change the scale. You can let's put the scale back to well, 50 is fine, and then we'll raise it back up. You can change. Let's do this. Let's select all. Now when I click the whole map, I'm applying this fractal height to all, so you get the whole map. You're like, okay, interesting. Let's crank this guy down to 10. That's the same kind of map you get from Fractal All without any automatic mesas. And let's say maybe you don't want so much height. You just want a little bit to start with, and then you'll work on it and build some fortresses and other structures. Or maybe you do want all the way up, lots of hills and valleys, but it looks still a little noisy for you. So maybe you need to stretch it out. Maybe that was too much. Let's try 60. That's not so bad. Not too bad. Now this control here regulates how the fractal algorithm works. Its persistence, its regularity. So if I just click, you can see how when I change that from 1 to 2, how it altered the generated terrain. A lot noisier. So that's one that you might want to spread out a little bit. Maybe even a little more. That sort of thing. Let's take a look at that map from so we can get a good 3D view on it. Yeah. Not so bad. Not so bad. That would be an interesting one to play, I think. So, creeper, just like terrain, we can come in and whoops, don't want to do that. Let's turn off all. You can paint creeper. Let's unpause the game and you can see that creeper that I just deposited. Similar for AC, there's your amount. You've got a button here during the editor. If you're letting it run, you can damp the waves and use to massage it to kind of get it into a still lake or something like that if you didn't get the amount right in the area that you painted it, that sort of stuff. So let's go all creeper, and here's where you can hold down shift and click and it will delete it will delete everything. Okay, our specials are this is new features to the game. There's been a few things sort of like it, but this is just, a lot of this is new, and how it works is new, and it's all alters the gameplay in some interesting ways, I think. So our specials, we have a range of them built in. We have these 10 slots, and we can configure any of the slots to be any of these specials that we want, and then we can configure parameters for them. Let's take a look at one called the resource, or reso. This is a resource that you need in the game. You can use it to make energy, or you can use it to make blueite, which will make anti-creeper. So let's just do flood to make this easy on ourselves. So I'll come here, and I'm like, well, if I click here, it will deposit some of this. Let's do a big area so you can just see what it looks like. This is resource terrain, and when I play a mission, you'll see how that's used. Shift click, get rid of it. Well, let's leave a little patch there. That's fine. So the creeper breeder, this stuff, when the creeper gets on top of it, it gets produced. It gets made, and so it's kind of like turning the terrain into an emitter. So you might have weird patterns of it, or areas, or what have you, that make it, and then you can come in here and edit the slot and change its duty cycle. It's on for 150 frames, off for 750. Produces up to 20 creeper at a rate of 3 while it's on. So you could have fun with this sort of stuff and make continuous emitters, or emitting terrain, or terrain that goes off once a minute but makes a huge amount for 10 seconds. That's what makes this monster tsunami wave that goes across the map. Fun stuff like that. There's a similar AC breeder. Same thing as the creeper breeder, but it only breeds anti-creeper. So that might be an area on a map that you want to fight for and get control of. You put your anti-creeper there, and it will start producing more. Flip will do either creeper or anti-creeper. So if the creeper's on it, it's a nightmare. If the anti-creeper's on it, it's a pleasant dream. So if the creeper's on it to start with, and you fight to secure it, and then can get some anti-creeper in there, you can turn the battle. You can turn the tide by controlling this. So this is creeper, this is anti-creeper, and this is flip, or either, for breeder terrain. We've also got some absorber terrain. This is terrain that it's a dead end for both creeper and anti-creeper. Now, it's not instantaneous. It lowers it at a rate, and you can change that rate. So you can make it immense, so it becomes essentially a barrier that the creeper can't cross, or you can make it very gentle, so waves might still go across it, but they get diminished. So that's our absorber terrain. Mesh is fun stuff. If you play Creeper World 3, and if you haven't, you should. This was Digitalis. It's very Digitalis-like. Now, this isn't Digitalis. The rules are a little different in this game, but you can think of it as Digitalis. So it's this mesh, and it will grow. This is the inactive state. It will grow out and turn blue, and it. Let's just do it instead of talking about it. Let's put something there and unpause the game. And actually, we don't need so much creeper, and I'll let that run faster in the background while I talk. So it grows, and you can see here that it conducts the creeper better, so it's allowing more creeper here. It also prevents creeper evaporation from happening, so it can also even cross void between islands. Oh, look here, it made it to the breeder creeper, and here's Flip. Better get in here and come back, and creeper, anti-creeper, deposit some on ours and on the Flip. So we've got a little creeper anti-creeper war going on back here while we talk. So So that's the mesh. It's like Digitalis from Creeper World 3. Now we also have Shattered Land, which, let's pause it here and slow it up and paint some of this. Let's just make a patch of it right here. Shattered Land is land which you can land on it and build on it and have a picnic on it, but when the creeper comes to town, the land's going to decay. And if you have put your picnic table on it, you're gonna need to look for a replacement, because as the land decays, the units and structures on it get destroyed. So if this creeper comes over here, it will make contact with the land, and I've got it, and you can control the rate at which it decays, but the default's pretty aggressive, so you see the effect. And it also decays all the way down to level 1. That's a setting as well. We can come in here and see strength and min height, so you can regulate that yourself. And 2 more. See, Knucracker Studios seeks to please or torture. Contaminant. This is land. I'm running out of clear land here. This is land that the creeper can run over. Anti-creeper can run over it. No trouble. It doesn't decay. However, you can't build on it, so you can't land on it. So if there's a bunch of this stuff surrounding where you need to start on a map, you're effectively on the worst kind of island. You're on an island that you can't get off of so easily, but the creeper can come to you very easily. Now, fortunately, this can be cleared. It can be cleared by 1 or more terps, and they even have a special decontamination mode so that they don't waste time raising and lowering the terrain. If you terraform the terrain, that gets rid of it, but you don't have to terraform it. You can just remove the contaminant. And the Crimsonator. Come here. Let's do a little patch right here. This is I should have put it here under the creeper. Well, that's okay. It's splashing up here. It turns the any creeper over it into Crimsonated creeper, which is a hardened, resilient version of creeper. Kind of like the crystal towers, except now you can put it on the terrain itself. Surround emitters on hills with it. That's a terrible thing to fight. Put it in valleys. Make runs of it. Interesting geometric configurations that you desperately try as a player to keep the creeper from making contact with. All right, I think that was the end of that's the end of our specials, our special terrain. The last thing I'll cover here are the eco. We have different types of life. This is going to, I'm not done with this, so this is going to change and expand, but just to show you what can go on here, let's make this clearer for ourselves. Let's get rid of all the creeper and the anti-creeper. That's okay, we'll let him carry on. And let's say let's pick some pine trees, and you can drag and draw them. You have a total budget of 4,000 plants that you can place. Now this is a really dense forest. Maybe we don't want that. So let's all shift click to get rid of all of it. Let's do flood, but then let's turn our coverage way down. Right? Remember that guy. And then flood. If I click here, then it will just sort of stick some trees here. If I click again, of course, it's going to randomize based on our coverage. If we don't do flood, make our brush bigger, do something like level lock, then we can accomplish a similar effect, but only where we want it. Let's get our coverage up a little bit and make them a little more dense in here. Now you might say, well, this is nice. You can decorate the map. These have a gameplay element. It's all still under evaluation, but if you see this eco loss up here, every time you lose a tree, that goes up, and this affects your score. your burden, which you're trying to minimize. So a player doesn't have to save trees, but if you do, you're going to have a better score. You're going to have a better performance on the map. So trees become sort of a secondary objective. Plus, who likes to see a beautiful forest just cut down by a wave of creeper? Nobody. Different plants that we can paint around like so. All right, so that's our terrain, editing tools. Maybe more things will come, maybe more things will change, but this is how she is right now. We have this great theme system now too. I've talked about themes before, but a few major changes have come to town. We can put a planet back here. This is not new. If you don't like it in space, there'll be different planet textures built in, so you can anchor your map to a world. We have themes, and this isn't new either. What is new is the treatment for how some of these textures and rendering are handled. So let's go grid world. You can see, okay, I don't think I'd want to play on that, but it might be neat to place units, and then you can change the theme because there's just a grid laid on everything. But let's open our theme editor now, and we have a slot for every terrain height, 1 through 20, and you can click on a slot and you can pick a texture, any texture you like, and it will change. So there's our checkerboard type thing, and then you can, for instance, it's a terrible thing to apply to a whole map, but you can click him, you're on him, and then apply that texture to all higher levels. So it's on the entire map now. You can alter the lighting. So you've got lighting options. You can even bloom it. It's going to look horrible, okay, but bear with me. You can get it up. You can get terrain up into the glow area for the shaders by altering the intensity. It's a multiplier times the color. Okay, so let's just click random, and let's do auto bright. This will change the brightness from lower to higher, from that value to that value. And then let's take we're on this tile here, let's set the scale to 1, apply that to everything, and then just hit random a few times. This picks totally random textures. So sometimes it ends up being, well, that's sort of okay. You'd want to work on a few things. There's a few too bright and too dark type things, but you can get some decent looking results. Let's pick one that's got a level of some terrain in it that and maybe we can, let's even raise the scale here, that shows I just want to show something in particular here. Okay, this is fine. It's not the best texture, but you see this texture here, this sort of lava streak texture. It looks okay, but you can clearly see, oh yeah, your texture was like that size, and it's tiled. It's repeated. I've built in detiling technology using the latest, greatest research on this. It uses a fascinating algorithm called stochastic detiling. You can check that out if you care about that sort of stuff. But I'm going to, let's see, this is level 12, so let's pick him right here. Happens to be this texture. I'm going to say detile, and suddenly it looks a lot like the original texture, but you don't know how big the texture was anymore because the tiling has been removed. It's sort of mathematically, intelligently figured out how to get rid of the seams and rework the pattern. So if I click here, detile, and do everything, then that's applied to the entire map. And now sometimes you actually want a pattern, and I mean, if that's the case, that's why you can turn this off. So for instance, this business right here, this level right here, let's say that for some reason I wanted a checkerboard. With detiling, that checkerboard looks like that. you might want the pattern, so there it is. But if you detile it, you can see how this algorithm works to sort of rework it. Okay, very quickly, normals. This is, let's go here, let's go back to here, let's just pick a regular texture, auto bright, and that's fine. So the same texture but varying brightness across the map. We still got some weird cliff, we still got our grid cliff thing going. Let's just change that right fast to cliff texture. We could pick yeah, okay, that's fine. It's fine for now. So normals, same thing. Normals are the way light bounces off a surface, so it doesn't have to be perfectly flat. These surfaces, other than the texture that's laid on them, they look flat. And in fact, if I come back here and I chose a perfectly flat texture, in this case white, then you can see that the light is just going to hit it and bounce off, and there's no pattern or anything to it. So let's go back and pick like that, which is fine, and then go to normals, and you can pick a normal, and then we can turn up the amount, and then let's apply that to everybody. And then you see the texture I've chosen for the normal texture is this grid pattern. And then suddenly you can see this grid pattern. It looks like it's overlaid on top of the texture. It's changing the geometry of the surface, or as far as light's concerned. So it's how light bounces off of it. So you see what looks like a pseudo 3D terrain. Let's lower it down a little bit. You can get rid of make the effect very small or very intense. Pick a different texture, of course. And you will get different effects. Change the scale. You get completely different looking terrain. I mean, you can make the scale enormous. It almost looks like plastic type terrain, all the way down to teeny. It almost looks like a different type of texture. Now, millions of combinations with many textures produce many effects, textures and normals together. You can make all kinds of neat looking terrain, and you can do it. I'm doing this for all the levels so we can see it, but you can do it per level of terrain. So you can have lower levels to design one way with certain normals, and then higher levels a different way. Cliffs, we did the cliff texture, but cliffs also have normals. We looked at cliffs for this area right here. So if we take the texture scale down, that's fine, and then we've got a normal texture. Let's pick something with a pattern to it like that, and then let's start to crank it up, and you can see that normal start to appear on the cliffs. Same sort of thing. You can go really high or more subtle. You can do a thing where this is texture 123. If you match the normal and keep the scales exactly the same, then you go from the texture to the normalized version of the texture, which starts to pull out the detail of the texture. That might or might not be what you want. You don't have to make these the same. A lot of times it looks better if you don't. But if you really wanted those cliffs to have sort of a, whoops, let's get back in there. There we go. Or a more exaggerated effect, you can take the normal, no normal, just a flat texture to see that. It starts to look like a 3D surface now. Neat. So overlays we've covered before. You can load images, project them on the entire map, scale them, offset them, change their opacity, and then you can also have custom textures as well. Not just these, but you've got a whole set of 20 custom texture slots for 20 textures that you can load. Okay, and this whole thing is a theme that you can save and open and share. So you may have a map, and you're like, awesome map, but it's ugly. Can you get somebody to give me a good theme? And then they give you a good theme, and off you go. All right, so that in a nutshell is what I wanted to cover in this video very quickly. We've got plenty of stuff we've covered in other videos, and I will try to show some of the stuff in action in the next gameplay video. So look for that very, very soon. Not months, as in a day or so. Thanks for watching.